This is MrBeast's guide to onboarding new employees. There's some incredible stuff in here about YouTube strategy, managing a production company, and some stuff that I disagree with too. If you don't know who MrBeast is, get out from under the rock that you've been living under. He's got the most popular YouTube channel in the entire world, and he's completely redefining the space every single time he posts a new video. But let's get right into it and break down this document together. Jimmy starts setting the vision for his company. You're here to make the best YouTube videos in the world. He's not here to make movies. He's not here to break into Hollywood. He's not here to get a TV deal. His goal is to make the best YouTube videos he possibly can. That kind of clarity from a team leader makes your entire company more streamlined. Does this fit the vision? If not, we're not doing it. Jimmy breaks down what he thinks are the three most important stats for his YouTube videos: click-through rate, average view duration, average view percentage. Let's break down each one and see how it informs every single video he makes. Click-through rate is the number of people who clicked on your video divided by the number of people who saw it. So if 10 people saw your video and one person clicked, that's a 10% click-through rate, or a 10% CTR. Jimmy just doesn't monitor this stat to better optimize his thumbnails and videos after they've been produced. He uses it to decide whether or not content should be made. From the conception of an idea all the way through, he is thinking about what is the thumbnail and what is the title of this video. As he says in the document, you must know the title and thumbnail of the video you're making. His guidance to employees is they need to know exactly what this looks like before they move into any kind of the production phase of this. From the outset, he knows what this will look like in your YouTube feed. As Jimmy explains in the document, this is what dictates what we do for videos. I spent 50 hours in my front yard is lame and you wouldn't click it, but you would hypothetically click, I spent 50 hours in ketchup. The two concepts are really pretty similar, but Jimmy completely abandons one because he thinks that idea is less clickable than the other one. You can do the same thing with your videos, not put people in ketchup to make it more clickable, but as you're thinking about your ideas, understand what it's going to look like when it appears. The videos that you're distributing are going to get seen in people's YouTube feeds. That is the first impression. What are they going to see, and what about your story is going to make them click? Is what you're telling people worthy of their click? When you're looking at stories to tell or ideas that you want to share, especially if you're in the public policy space, a lecture about this isn't going to make sense. But what you can do is tell a story, and by telling the story, you can get to the impact of the public policy issue. You can't just put people in ketchup, but you can utilize stories to share your perspective and share the issues in ways that make sense to people. But getting the click isn't enough. Your content has to deliver on the title and the thumbnail. The title and the thumbnail on the videos you will be producing set the expectations for your viewer. Clickbait just doesn't work. You can't trick people into liking your videos or to clicking on them. All right. We're on to page 6. Yes, we've made it through 5 whole pages of this 35-page document. We're going to move a little faster at this point. Up next is average view duration. That's AVD. This is pretty simple. It's how long did somebody watch your video on average. Jimmy includes this screenshot. You can see this blue line tracking down. It starts at 100%, everybody's watching, and as time goes on, viewership changes and decreases. Jimmy uses AVD as a framework for how his team edits their videos. As Jimmy says, the first minute has the most loss. This is why we freak out so much about the first minute. Jimmy breaks his videos down into 4 sections. The first minute, minutes 3 to 6, minutes 6 to 3, and minutes 6+. Here's how he structures each one. At the beginning of this, in almost every video, there's a huge drop in viewership. That's pretty normal. You would expect to see that. So that first minute, increasing the retention as much as possible, keeping as much audience as possible, means you'll have a higher threshold throughout the whole rest of the video. So this first minute, absolutely crucial. Stress over it, obsess over it. Here's what you can do with it. First, deliver on the promise of the thumbnail. Second, start hyping up what the rest of the content looks like. This first minute is your next promise. You're telling people what they can expect to see throughout the rest of the video. You don't want to give the story away. You don't want to summarize everything in the first minute, but this is your chance to tell viewers what they can see coming. Then minutes 1 to 3, now's the time to start transitioning from hype to execution. As Jimmy says, stop telling people what they'll be watching and start showing them. Here's your opportunity to get your viewers interested and invested in the stakes of the video. Of course, you'll need to do some amount of table setting here, but you really want to start getting into the story as quickly as possible. All right, we're 3 minutes in. Now it's time to re-engage your audience. For Jimmy, this is a spectacle that only he can deliver. Here's how he describes it. Content that is highly interesting, that fits the story and makes people genuinely impressed. What's unique about your story? What's a moment that you can peg to that 3-minute mark that really piques viewers' interest and makes them re-engage with the entire video? Now you kick off the 3 to 6 minute mark with that re-engagement hook, but here's what you do with the rest of it. Jimmy says that this is where you plan out the most exciting and most interesting content. Get to the meat of your story in a quick and compelling way. For Jimmy, this means quick scene changes, but for your audience, depending on the story that you're trying to tell and who you're trying to tell it to, you might need to take a slightly different approach. Finally, at the 6 minute mark, Jimmy drops another re-engagement hook, and then this is in the final phase, the 6+ phase. At this point, your viewers are pretty darn committed. They've already watched this video for 6 minutes, and they probably want to see how it ends. You don't want to start shoveling garbage at them. You don't want to take it for granted. However, after this point, it's going to be easier probably to retain them than it would be otherwise. They're going to want to see the end. So start preparing for it. I've mentioned this before in other spots, but ultimately, making good content for these platforms, making content that the algorithms like, means making content that helps YouTube sell more ads. So what do you do to sell more ads? Increase average viewer percentage. By increasing that AVP number, this gives YouTube an opportunity to serve more ads. The longer that people stick around and watch videos, the longer they'll watch more videos. It's an indicator of quality to see how long somebody sticks around. But Jimmy has some interesting advice here that kind of goes against the grain. He wants you to end abruptly. He wants you to stop at the end, where a lot of people like to do long CTAs to explain what's in the description and where to get merch and join the community, blah, 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 blah. No, he wants you to cut it off and move on. By not signaling the end, people don't start to sign off early, which decreases that AVP number. It also kind of creates an opportunity for people to want more. The best way to do that, of course, is to queue up another MrBeast video. So by ending abruptly, Jimmy increases his percentage completion. We've talked a lot about what Jimmy's doing right in this document, but I think he really misses the mark in a few spots. Let's talk about it. MrBeast is an absolute maniac when he focuses on YouTube. There's a reason that he's #1. His maniacal focus on the platform has really set him up for success. However, there's a lot of transferable skills there. If he was more open to looking at other platforms, if he was doing more than just being on YouTube, then he might open up some new opportunities for him. YouTube isn't going anywhere right now, but some diversification might help him on this front. Obviously, he has other businesses outside of this video space, but looking at other places within video content creation where he might have some other opportunities could give him a real leg up on other competitors in other spaces. Now, we've got to keep in mind the kind of videos that Jimmy's making. He's really making entertainment videos. So when he says something like this, you've got to keep it in context of what he's making. Quote, the more extreme, the better. Now, when you're making those fundamentally silly and entertaining videos, that's great, that makes sense. But if you're engaged in public policy efforts or more serious communications, then making something more extreme could really miss the point. It could harm your brand, it could set you up or your organization or your industry up for longer term issues. I would be careful about following this advice. In the narrow context in which he provides it, totally makes sense. But applying it further than that could lead to problems. This document isn't just about YouTube strategy. He also gets into some management philosophy. He ranks employees in 3 tiers: A tiers, B tiers, and C tier players. He wants only A tier players at his organization. Some of that makes sense. Sometimes there just aren't entry-level jobs at a company. That's okay. But he defines B tiers as people who could be A players. He thinks that if those B people had the training and had the opportunities, they could be coached to grow up to A-level players. But from his perspective, they don't have time to do this. This isn't worth doing for them. This is where I disagree. Coaching, training, teaching, those help you understand your craft better. They make you better at it by communicating it to somebody else. So if he has got these A-tier players that could, learn how to coach, that could learn how to grow other talent and develop an internal talent pipeline, that might make those A-tier players S tier players, but he's missing that opportunity by not wanting to have those B tier folks. There's so much more in this document. I'd love to hear your thoughts. There's a download link in the description.